Good evening, everyone. Welcome to EduTALK. This is EduTALK. EduTALK is a weekly virtual talk show created out of the need for a global learning community. And we're focused on topics in education that directly impact Caribbean nations and diaspora nationals working across the globe, the African diaspora. EduTALK features teachers, principals, business leaders, dignitaries, and students sometimes. They share their views and expertise, depending on where you are, on critical topics facing education today with a common goal of moving education forward and our students upward. I am your host. I'm Dr. Dwayne Dice, and I'm the CEO and founder of Education Solutions International, ESI. We love ESI because it has been doing a wonderful work in the lives of many people, principals, teachers, and students. And I want to say shout out to a bunch of people. The Jamaicans we visited, students, teachers, principals across Western, I think that's Western Jamaica, Northern Jamaica, in St. Anne and in Clarendon, as well as Manchester in Jamaica. These are parishes in Jamaica. So I'm going to give some shout out specific people and schools in a little bit. You know, today we're talking about comparing schools, and EduTalk has taken on the form to highlight certain differences and similarities that are happening in our education system, the views. And so when we talk, it's about actionable talk. It's not just for gossiping about schools and educational leadership or policy. It's about trying to create change in the minds and hearts of our educators, and then using that change from an idea to become actionable steps that you move around and you make changes in the schools. So it's not about talk, it's about action. And if somebody wants to say, okay, maybe we need to change it from EduTalk to EduAction, then we could probably change it. But make sure that while we have our discourses from week to week in, week out, that you're making changes while listening to us, because we're doing the same too. We're all educators in this. Now, my guest is always with us, whether in person or in mind, but she's in mind here with us. She's Mrs. Dice. She is the co-founder and CFO of Education Solutions International, ESI. Visit us at edusolutionsintl.org. That's our website, edusolutionsintl.org. If you want to write to us, you can write to us at admin@educationsolutionsinternational.org. That's admin@educationsolutionsinternational.org. All right, welcome to the program. There's no welcome here, Judy, because you've been on here quite a few times. So last week, we went to Jamaica to attend the conference, the fall conference at Catholic College of Mandeville, presented there in our workshop, leadership workshop for the master students. They're very good. So shout out to Catholic College of Mandeville, MED program, Master in Education program, or Master of Education in Teaching and Learning. And I want to say shout out to the schools that we donated laptops to, well, specifically students. So the students we donated laptop to who were entered in a competition that talks about the Reformation of Jamaica, and they wrote essays about the Reformation of Jamaican Constitution and what it will look like for certain aspects, certain people. So students from Orakabessa, one student from Orakabessa High School in St. Mary came in top 3. These are the top 3. We won't tell you who came in first, second, and third, but top 3 students. Orakabessa High School, shout out to one student from that school, and York Castle High School, shout out to 2 students from that school, as well as there's a student, also a couple of students from Steertown Academy, and that was really, really cool to have them. We also have students from Ocherius High School too, who were a part of it, and then others who didn't show up. But also shout out to my alma mater, high school alma mater, Arbuthnot Gallimore High School over there in Alexandra St. Anne. We donated some laptops to them, to the math department and language arts department, and more to come from our neck of the woods. Judy, what can you say about our experience too? You know, because you have your own experience, of course, as an individual going there and interacting with students and seeing the schools, different students, interacting with people in general.
Well, it is always a really great experience. First of all, just to be home and to move around the island. But I was especially impressed, and I have to say I was even holding back tears when I was listening to the essays being read. I mean, the quality of essay, the capacity and the intellectual ability of the students. I mean, the essay was a very difficult topic, I would think, for somebody, for high school students, and not just what they thought about rewriting the Jamaican Constitution, but taking into account the slave history, the influence of colonial rule, and keeping in mind, their eye on the future about the economic success of the country. So it was a remarkably difficult task that they took on, and some of them came from very far. You even gave a ride, it was quite a distance to get them back to where they could finally find another transportation home. But it just shows you the dedication and the commitment to learning. The top one winner even mentioned the fact that this was a very stressful experience for her because of the challenge that she put in front of her in order to compete. And here it is, she comes out winning. So it just shows you that when you stretch yourself, as young as you are, and you step out there regardless of the fear and the anxiety and the trepidation that you may have, that you can come out ahead. And they were very, very pleased to get the Apple computers that we donated. They were very excited. We left it until the last minute. You did that. So they didn't even know what the award was going to be. And that to me was even more special because they didn't come to win a laptop. They came and they committed to doing the best job that they could on a very important topic to the future of their country, because it was something that they were committed to achieving. So it was just a pleasure to be able to work with them, to witness their exceptional ability to think through these issues. And then you didn't mention, we had some lovely singers too, like two little girls who, one was 14, one was 16. They'd known each other since the youngest age. We've known each other forever, apparently, when they were in preschool. Okay. And they did the most beautiful harmonizing. What school was that where they were wearing purple?
I think that's a Steertown Academy.
Steertown Academy, and they had their own guitarist with them.
Yeah, very
and
good.
Just saying that, I mean, it just really touched my heart, the talent that was in that room, and also going to St. Mary's University and seeing the quality of education that they received there. I was shocked to see
Catholic College of Mandeville.
Catholic College of Mandeville. That's what it's called. Sorry, my mistake. They're associated with St. Mary's University. Okay, I mixed it up. But yeah, Catholic College.
That's St. Mary's. It's St. Mary's of Minnesota.
St. Mary's of Minnesota. Okay. Yeah. So they had mentioned it briefly, so I guess I had forgotten. But what I saw at Catholic College was exceptional. Literally, the defense that they do for their master's program, I believe you said it was action research, was something that I've only seen at the doctoral level. So it just kind of corroborated all of the hype around, Caribbean taught teachers. I mean, the quality of education that they receive, the rigor of instruction, the level and quality that they're expected to achieve is remarkable. So I had a really great time just witnessing all of the talent that we got a chance to see, and also getting a look at the school where you used to teach as well, and seeing how they still miss you and didn't want you to leave. So
yeah, Garlogie, what is that? Garlogie Primary and Junior High at the time. I think it's just primary. It's just primary now, infant and primary school. And then, of course, Christiana Moravian primary and infant school. That's Christiana, in Christiana.
we forgot to mention you gave what do you call it? Award
Stickers or
stickers. Yeah.
yeah, to Cumberland, shout out to Principal Gopal, that Principal Miss Cheryl Gopal. Yeah, she a wonderful principal over there in Cumberland. It's in, I think that is on border with Clarendon and Manchester. It's on a mountain. It's beautiful. Beautiful mountain with a lot of farming and farmers. They're very lovely people. Yeah, so the mere fact that you mentioned these students and how rigorous the competition was for that essay is 2,000 words. And they wrote it, they read with such eloquence, you know, to display. It's very difficult. It was very difficult for me to pinpoint who could have been in first place, you know, because of the rigor, and the students, or they talk about the effort that they put in it. Because I tend to talk about effort instead of, you know, saying that we have the ability to do this and we did it. You know, this presumption that the strength that we put in our work is very much separate and apart from the effort. That if you know and do something, is because you're good at it. But a lot of people who have come out successful at doing things, they're actually putting in effort. And a lot of these people fail a dozen times over, but they're constantly failing forward and putting in more effort and so on. And I really admire that with the students. I remember when you, as a judge, you were a judge in the competition, and you went away with the other judges to tally the marks and talk about, you know, what you're going to rank these students. Two of them actually held hands and they were praying. They prayed and said, "Dear God, you know, please let this happen because they put in a lot of work." And funny enough, those two students came in first and second place. It's really remarkable that even when they put in effort and they saw their work, they still felt very humble in the end of it, you know. It's really remarkable. But speaking of that, Jenny, I don't want to talk too much. I want to share the airtime. Schools. We're comparing schools and looking at, we call them, you know, comparing. It's just like comparing apples and oranges. And because they're very different. Schools are, and they're supposed to be different. Yeah, you can't measure success with the same criteria in terms of school. You need different criteria for success if you're looking at, if you'd say that human beings have varying abilities, then you can't use the same yardstick to measure students, because not everybody is going to be a mathematician or a scientist, but they can be scientists in terms of musical scientists, or geologists, or coders, the people who write codes and so on, or algorithm for computers, and even chemists. They're way different, and the way they live their social lives. And these students are in law, they're studying law in sixth form, and so on. But there's a thin thread that runs right through all of them, regardless of the school they came from. So there's certain things that are happening in the minds of students in schools, that they want to do hard work. They want to engage themselves, and they want to feel a sense of accomplishment. There's a thin thread running across schools, even though they're in different vicinities and teaching maybe different ways and so on. What's your view on this, in terms of when you look at the students and you see them excelling at their craft? What can you say about this, the environment that they're coming from?
Well, that's a very interesting question because oftentimes the school itself, the structure, the people within it are isolated, as if the change that occurs in a student happens exclusively from that one vantage point. But in the little conversation that we had with the young ladies that we were transporting to where they could travel, they shared very important information about the environment that complements and supports their learning in school. They explained how supportive their parents were. That was the primary piece. One of the little girls actually said that her mom moved to where she could be closer to the school so that she could still commute from home to school and still be with her mother. Whereas the other sacrifice that the other family made, that the other young lady mentioned, was that she's now not even living with her parents, she's living with a relative that's closer to the school. So when you talk about the level of commitment and sacrifice and support that a child gets, it's critical to being able to take that into consideration as part of their education community, right? And how that works in collaboration with what's taking place at the school itself. Now, schools that have high standards for students tend to adopt that for themselves. So what matters is what's happening at the leadership level, at the school, how they're articulating the importance and the self respect of the school and the self respect they intend the students to have, so that they can help. It helps to contribute to their character, to the seriousness in which they take the work that they're doing. The fact that they do exactly what you said, try. Right. I mean, in order to get better at something, you have to do it. And they took the opportunity. This is an excellent example to try something that actually made them nervous. So schools that provide opportunities for trying and getting better at things is very important. And that's kind of counter intuitive to exams, because exams, you tend to eventually, even the educator themselves, to teach to the exam because they want kids to do well. But real learning takes place in much more of a diverse environment than that. Exposure to a number of things where you can't always do them correctly, whereas tests require you to do well on them. You need examples and opportunities and experiences in an educational environment to fail, like you said, but to fail forward, to fail in a way that you're actually building your craft, building your skill set through the learning that comes from not doing it well the first 5 or 6 times. So a good school, the school that not just wants you to achieve academically, it's a school that, as you always say, I mean, in privacy, and when you do speeches, I think the speech that you did recently definitely touched on that, is the fact that they have to develop their character. And developing your character means not only identifying and exploring what you're good at, but also finding out where those areas of development that you have, so that you can be a more rounded person. And so that's my opinion about what schools should strive for. But you really touched something when you said, it's not cookie cutter, right? You have to know your student population. You have to know the needs of your community. You need to know where they're located, how they live. Are they farmers? Whatever the case may be, so that you can speak their language in the learning that happens in the school as well. And whatever you're doing there has to support what's happening with them at home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're real. And to add to that, because you brought up a good point too, with the fact that a school must give students the opportunity to struggle positively through a problem or a scenario in terms of project-based learning or not. Students should not be sitting around idling outside or wherever they are, because in Jamaica you have wide open spaces for schools, and in other countries as well. Even in America here, there are certain suburbs where you can go outside, you can sit down. It's not like in New York City or inner city where everything is in one big building, and so they don't have air to breathe except if it's coming through an AC unit. You have space. So, but what I'm seeing in certain schools is that students are left to their own demise. And so somebody will say, go to class, or why are you out here? Please go to class, and just leave the students like this. Whereas in some schools, they will say, come here, young man. This is an assignment. I need you to go work on it right now, because apparently you're not doing anything right now. We need to engage your brain. Or pull them into a class and say, well, how you do this? Can you speak to, if there are seniors or, older students, they pull them in to engage them a little bit more. And we can go on and on about this. But there's a thing about these schools that are different from schools that cause students to fail. And fail, you can look at it in many different ways. You can say they fail to matriculate, or they fail an exam, or they fail to engage themselves in school so that they don't come to school. There's certain things in the school that cause them to stay away from learning and so on. Whereas there are other schools that actually promote learning. And promote learning could take many different avenues. It could be engagement with the type of teachers that are employed in that school, engagement with the type of technology, and technology doesn't have to be computers only, exposure to cutting edge activities and instructional strategies. So students come and want to learn because of what they're exposed to. But here's the thing that we don't talk about a whole lot, and you can dwell on this for a little bit. The relationship among students and teachers. What sort of relationship do you build with students so that they are eager to come back tomorrow? Do you let them feel safe? You let them feel like they want to engage with you a little bit more so that they rush home in order to come back tomorrow, right after school. So let's talk about relationship that students should have with parents and their students, because you have them in ed leadership, the educational leadership in the school, bridge that gap, and teachers to bridge that gap with the relationship between school and the students, the educator and the students. Talk about that a little bit in terms of relationship.
Man, you're speaking my language here.
All right. So, yeah.
There's so much to say on this topic. As a parent myself with the child in school, it is, and I know you obviously you identify with this as well. Your child is so important to you, and you turn them over trusting that the teacher will, by extension, show them the same level of care and concern and help them and guide them to their development, right? Through their development in that process and keep them safe. Unfortunately, not all children are coming from an environment, a home environment where their parents have the best in mind for them. And it's not, it could be, intentional or unintentional, but sometimes the kids develop low self-esteem as a result of their home environment. And in the case like that, because you cannot learn unless you believe you can learn. So having confidence is very important. So where a parent isn't already doing that for a child, the teacher has to step in and do that for the child. It has to give the child an opportunity somewhere, and develop those who already have it. But for those who don't, develop those who that in them that they have confidence in their ability to learn, their ability to grow, that they are cared for. So if teachers like it or not, they really are the parent away from home in a lot of ways. And so, those relationships that they have with the actual parents are critical, not just for keeping the peace, but also for better understanding the child, better understanding how they can support the child, what the child has access to, what the child might be grappling with that contributes to their performance in school. If they're sad, if they're, and in some cases, I was watching a movie recently where the children of a Mexican family, they had to farm between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. And every time they got to school by 7:30, they were sleeping in the classroom. The teacher was very gentle with them in the movie, but that would not go over well in most schools. So they would be reprimanded, they would be punished, they would have to deal with a lot of other circumstances that would further degrade their own self-worth, right? Other than what they already had to do even to get there.
Yep.
So teachers have a really big responsibility. There's no way around it. They really do need to understand their role. And some of them actually, unfortunately, and that's where schools fail, is where teachers have lost their understanding of what their role is. That support, that goal setting around developing a child. Some start to think that, it's their concerns that matter above that of the child, that the parent is seen as an obstacle rather than a partner or a collaborator. These attitudes are things that within a leadership structure under the leadership of the principal should be trying to tackle. getting rid of who can't be changed, developing those who can, and for those who are already doing well, giving them leadership opportunities to expand their successful attitude and approach to dealing with children and family. That way, you build a very solid structure that allows students to improve, allows teachers to feel fulfilled and happy, and allows that leader to be able to focus on getting the resources necessary to encourage and perpetuate continuous learning and growth for everybody. As that's really what a principal is supposed to do. A lot of principals in bad or low performing schools are going around putting out fires, quelling arguments between teachers, dealing with erratic, angry parents that feel disrespected. All of those are avenues for failure for not only the entire school, but especially for the vulnerable children that attend that school.
Yeah, I agree. And you have more to that too. So that's the relationship part of it, how you build connection, where you refer to as engagement. The school community engagement partnership with the families and other stakeholders. It's a relationship. It is a relationship that is very sensitive and should be meaningful, but also important. It is an important avenue so that you will have longevity in the life of the school, because sooner than later it might become this where they refer to as bad school in the community, and you can't scare kids there because they have nothing good going on over there, so the other thing that we want to talk about is the leadership aspect, because in schools that are good schools, they actually grow leaders. They don't wait. They are like a wellspring of leaders. So if you imagine this, you walk into a school and everybody is like, where's the principal? Like, everything runs so smoothly here. Can I see the spring? And they said, well, the principal is not here at the moment. How may I help you?
Yes.
Like, the principal is gone and the school is running like a fine-tuned machine. That school is where like a lot of people would like to work in, but it takes work. It takes work to get there. What are some based on your interaction with like superintendents or so on that are leading schools, the criteria you can highlight, because let me highlight one so that it gets you on the right. One of those criteria that I look on in good schools that have really good leadership, that actually grow leaders, it's a sense of belonging. Like, everybody has a sense of belonging in the school. The students have a sense of belonging, teachers have a sense of belonging, and they have and the principal feel as if that principal exercises a sense of shepherd, being a shepherd and everything else. Not that they're sheep, but you get it, just like a guardian over these people, that they are not owners of the precepts and the policies, but they're guardians of these precepts. So they will say, I welcome you to join me in leadership. This is not my school, this is our school. So that's one thing. One criteria is the collaboration, that they welcome the people to become a part of leadership. So you grow leaders, okay? It's a sense of belonging, a sense of belonging. What is your criteria?
So that's actually a very good point. I mean, it kind of really explains the criteria that I would say is a leading component to why students and teachers and even principals want to be at a school, is because the reputation of the school and the success of the school brings everybody pride. So pride is a very important part of wanting to be at a school and wanting to do your best. Teachers wanting to do their best, students wanting to do their best, teachers wanting to principals wanting to benefit from the legacy and the success of that school. And so that's a major part of it. You'll find that in schools where children don't want to be there, leadership doesn't want to work, school teachers are unhappy. These are the schools that fail in other aspects of straight academic success, right? I mean, they're failing, so they don't achieve that, and that perpetuates an already existing downhill slope. So for that leader who comes in, they have to lay the groundwork by building some level of, I would say, identification and pride in the school. That can start with something as simply as doing a garden that everybody gets to participate in doing together. Obviously bringing parents into the school, fixing it up, sometimes simply painting it, freshening it up and doing it as a community effort. And then the kids feel good to be in a place like that, right? And then you want to actually, as you had said earlier, it's directly associated with leadership. Is that head of school developing leaders in each and every one of those teachers, or do they just feel like they're going through the motions and meeting whatever the expectations are of that principal? Each teacher has to feel like a leader in their own capacity, and they need to understand leadership is something that can be collaborative. So collaborative in the sense that teachers should be working together across grades in order to be able to understand and prepare teachers for the concurring grades, to be able to say, hey, my kids are going to be ready to move up when they come to your grade because I've ensured that they've reached the goals that they need. And for those who haven't, then I'm going to give you an advanced, notice on that. And then we're going to try to help them over the summer so that they can be on point. And the kids and the families need to know that these efforts are being made so they know that they're cared for and that they can work in collaboration with the efforts that are being made by the educators to ensure their success. So these are the kinds of things that need to take place in order for the entire school community to build the pride that is associated with academic success. But those things fundamentally have to happen before academic success can take place.
Yes, yes,
Hey
yes.
there, Dr. Barker.
Hey, Dr. Barker. Dr. Barker, we're right up your stream here with good school, like what makes a school good, and what the ones who are lingering behind, what caused them to be referred to as bad schools or schools that are failing schools. So yeah, greet everybody because we haven't seen you in months, literally.
I'm coming out of hibernation when the winter is starting, so it's the opposite of the bear, I suppose. No,
Yeah.
good evening, everyone. Certainly happy to be back on EduTalk. It's been a
Yes.
while. But what a wonderful topic to come and join. What a wonderful topic. Great schools, what makes school great.
So yeah, Miguel, we actually closing off like in 9 minutes or so. But we're gonna give you time to talk. Yeah, because we want to hear from you. You're an eloquent speaker and presenter, not just principal of middle school in England, but like I admire your leadership and the in terms of the presentations and quality presentations, a great mind among us. So we talk about some of the relationships. So the criteria for a good school would be relationship between school and home, but we dig into the idea of having the relationship, a positive relationship between teacher and student, so that they would want to come back tomorrow. When a student leaves school, they feel very sad that they're leaving and they can't wait to come back tomorrow because of that single thread of a relationship between them and the teacher. We talk about leadership also. Yeah. So share with us a little bit about that, and then we talk about the failing school. What is it that they have that are causing them, like a sore thumb? So talk about the positive.
Interesting question. What makes a school great?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think ultimately, success for the students that are in the school it would be the measure. A school ultimately is there to serve the needs of the students that are there, and if they are coming out successful, then that's one metric that could be used to determine if a school is great. Now, one of the things that we have in many of the systems is that some good schools get good students, right? And so they produce great outcomes as well. So that's one of the reasons why there has to be a caveat in terms of just output. But we can certainly measure all schools by the value that they add to students. When they come, what do they receive and how do they leave? Are they better off than before? So, I think in that sense, then we have to look at the quality of the curriculum that's there and what roles do teachers play in developing and growing and improving that curriculum. The input of the community, parents involved, students involved. These are some maybe small things that don't cost money, but they're very difficult to get going, in many school communities. Some of that is endemic through the challenges of those communities.
Mhm.
But by and large, a good school is a community.
Mhm.
A
Yes,
good school
very good.
normally is a community. It's everyone's looking out for each other. I know I heard Judy talking about a lot of the collaborative aspect of it. That's an essential part of it. And also, I think I heard Judy when I came in talking about the growing of what we in research call teacher leaders, where everyone is influencing their space by having, by willing to grow themselves, but also leading. There's a term that came out in John Hattie has done a meta-analysis of, the research papers that showed where students found success in those schools. If you're following the literature, you'll hear talk about the visible learning project, So he crunched, the first paper was about 80,000 papers, but he's now expanded that to over 120,000 papers to come up with what we call the visible learning project. And what he found was that in the very first time when he did it, there's a term that came out that was on the number one thing that had the greatest impact on student outcomes. It was called collective efficacy.
Mhm.
That was a number one. It's not anymore, but in the first time that the visible learning research was let out, it was called collective efficacy. And that was the belief that the people within the community had that they could impact the lives of the students in their care. Like they had a belief that they had the capacity within themselves to do that.
Yes.
The point is, the schools that are the most successful are the ones that have the highest collective efficacy. They believe that there's no barrier that will stop them from having that impact on student learning. And so one of the things that we have to do then as organizations, if we're talking about good schools, is having the conditions that allow collective efficacy to flourish. It's not number one anymore. It's moved on to about 4, but it's still one of the highest effect, has one of the highest effect sizes on student learning.
That's powerful. Judy?
Yes, that's exceptional. It's always nice to have you, Dr. Barker. You always bring your research, and that's incredible. And your vocabulary around these things, it's exceptional. I'm really happy to have it as part of our discussion. I'd like to learn a little bit more. Do you remember the other 3? You said there were 4 besides collective efficacy.
No. He identified about 173 factors that influence student learning. So there are a number of others. Like, for example, he had one called student reported grades. I think that eventually became number 1, where students played a role in. So in terms of students believing what they were going to achieve, that had a massive impact on what they actually achieved,
Yeah, yes.
But those speak to a culture where students are involved in the
Mhm.
assessment process rather than just at the end. They're also involved in self-assessment and
Right.
peer assessment. And so these are more those kind of things that happen. But that research is easily found online, visible learning research. And it's just one of those research outcomes that has transformed education massively, and certainly launched John Hattie into as an educational leader in terms of what he has shared. But it changes from time to time because he keeps adding more data into it. And I suppose the novelty of it has also worn off slightly, in the sense that once we got to a different number 1 and a different number 1, but if you look at, so one of the key things you'll find is something called effect sizes coming out, and that's maybe the key thing to look at. And you would find, for example, like smaller class size, for example, does not have a high effect size, and meaning that it doesn't have a massive impact on student learning in the way that, people might say if I have a smaller class. There are many other factors that were more intrinsic to what teachers and schools did for learning than just having the physical things present, you know. So it's really an interesting piece of, but if you're talking about great schools, you'll find that some of these things are going to be endemic to those schools.
Powerful. It's powerful. So if we can even summarize it now, if schools don't really exercise those criteria or components, then they won't be great schools. If they don't put students learning forward in the forefront of their planning, either whether it's instructional planning or even resources for the school, that the student learning, that should be the outcome, that they're maximizing student learning. So Miguel, I'll give you about 2 more minutes before we close off here. See, you on EduTALK here, share with us, there's certain things that we look for in when we're comparing schools, and it's not just the passing of an exam, but we work towards developing content among students. So we talk about you mentioned earlier about the matriculation, where you get students and where you take them. Does this screening that you mentioned, that some students, depending on where they come into the school, so some schools might get really wonderful students who are ready for learning and so on. Should we use that to compare schools, or should we say, depending on where we get the students and where we take them? Because nowadays you have, even long time ago, students like the Ivy League schools, they might say we are wonderful because our students do well. But where do they get these students? You know, whereas a student at a school all the way in the country there will get some students who can hardly read. And then they take them up to a level. And those
Value
students,
added.
yeah. So talk to us about the criteria. Is it fair? Is it fair?
Here's a question I'm going to ask back then. A classic example would be, let's take Jamaica, for example, Campion College.
Yeah.
So we have the exam has changed now. I don't remember what it's called now. PEP.
PEP, yeah.
When you used to have GSAT and so on,
Yeah.
the top performing students would end up going to a school that has a reputation of being a top performing school. So let's use Campion as the #1 school in terms of getting the pool of kids. Now, a big question we can ask ourselves is, if let's say we take the school that is at the other end of the spectrum. Let's say at the 157th ranked school in Jamaica. Would the outcomes of the students change if we had the same students were placed in the school that is at the bottom of the list? That's one thing that we could look at. What if we tried an experiment? We send those kids keep the same teachers that are in the school 157th ranked, and put the best students in that school. That's one option. Or the other option, we could let the kids who have done well, let them stay at Campion, but we swap the teachers. So we take the teachers at the bottom end of the scale and put them in Campion, and take the Campion teachers and put them in that school. That would be an interesting experiment to see. I think it gets to the heart of maybe what you're asking, you know, that kind of experiment to say, is it, you know, that's a question I'd pose in return. I don't know what
That
Judy want to come in.
That research has been done here. So we had a situation here in New York City where obviously in public schools we have gifted programs. And the research said that if you teach kids that are not in a gifted program, but using the same gifted language, rhetoric, support, calling them scholars instead of by their name and reprimanding them, that they actually performed almost equal to, in most cases, even the same as the students who had always been in a gifted program. Wow. So it appears that, again, and that was what we were talking about earlier, is the attitude of the teacher, the attitude of the leaders in the school about the student's ability to learn has a direct and very critical impact on the actual learning that takes place. So sorry, go ahead.
Go on. No, go on.
No, I was just saying it's a great question, because you don't even have to physically move them from one school to the next. If the leaders themselves and the teachers themselves adopt changed ways of approaching learning and a changed way of understanding and appreciating and valuing, because that's where we started, right? With this efficacy idea. If they know for a fact that these kids can learn, then there's no way that they're going to stop trying and ensuring that they reach that goal. Whereas, I mean, I did a longitudinal study when I first started with the New York City Department of Education. I was in research and data, and I was actually doing what we called a student teacher linkage. They were trying to assess the number of hours a teacher is with a student and whether or not that was a positive impact on the child's academic outcome, right? Whatever test that we were using. But when I was reaching out to schools across the Manhattan, there were some schools that they were very enthusiastic. Our scholars are going to do this and that, and we've got to, they had a computer, they can, look at the data, fill out what I needed, get it back to me. And then I had other schools where the computer wasn't even at the school. I had to wait for the secretary to go home to use her home computer to access this data. And then she's asking, well, why are you even bothering? They're never going to finish the program. None of them, a very small percentage of them are even going to graduate. I don't know why you're doing this. So just imagine, she's already feeling dejected, under-resourced, hopeless for her own career and her own situation. And she's also feeling hopeless for the kids. This cannot go unnoticed and escape the children integrating that into their own understanding of their own ability, right? And so you realize that in those schools that do have resources and do treat their students that way, they're also able to promote themselves better and attract resources that these other sad, depressed schools aren't able to get. Just because they can speak positively about their schools and their students' achievement and all the goals that they have, they can actually attract money. So it attends to all aspects of the progress that can be made in the school, starts with the attitude of the educators and the leaders in that school.
Collective, the term is collective efficacy. It is a powerful term because you will find in the schools that, and where's the cycle? We don't know where it starts, right? The chicken or the egg. But the reality of it, in low performing schools, you'd maybe find equally low collective efficacy there. That belief that they can truly have an impact. You may find it in individuals with high collective efficacy in the individual. Well, I suppose that term doesn't make sense in that sense. But you'd find that some people would believe that they're able to do it, but this power doesn't exist in enough people in the organization for that, the collective efficacy to have an impact on student lives. So what you're talking about, for me, again, aligns to that kind of idea that, and so I suppose the question is, if you're in a school where, that kind of belief in students' potential is low, what are the kind of things that leaders should be doing to demonstrate to people that one can? Those are the kind of, and yes, using powerful words like scholars and setting high expectations and raising aspirations within those environments is a starting point. But, sometimes it's hard to break those cycles because even the parents don't believe it,
Exactly.
Starting point as well. So
yes,
something powerful to keep in mind. I'm glad we have this conversation, and we have to kind of, if you can't label it, then you're sometimes not able to address the issue.
Yeah, it's true. You have to name it, claim it, and change it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it works well together because, I've actually seen these things in action. I didn't realize the research actually labeled it, right? But I can definitely speak at length about what I've seen and the differences. And also times, something as simple as just telling teachers, scale back your expectation and work on achievement. small aspects of developing that child's confidence will also allow you to develop your own confidence in that child. So a lot of times they have these big aspirations. Oh, I need him to finish that exam and score that. But let's just focus on him understanding this idea and have little achievements per day that build into larger ones, that allow that child to take more risks and to learn more and to take on more challenges. That's going to actually develop his ability to achieve that long-term goal you have in mind. See, we get caught up in our what do you call it, our pedagogical ideals, you know, in some cases. And sometimes you have to just go back to basics. And sometimes it's going to require you to go back a little further than you thought. But ultimately, you might take, you know, 2 steps back, you know, 1 step back to go 2 steps forward. And that faith and understanding and in intellectual capacity of children is critical. And for those of us who are differentiating instruction or looking for additional resources to support special needs, that requires the skills of the teacher to understand and recognize those different aspects of the learning, you know, and not give up, but understand, what am I seeing here, to reevaluate. And that's the leadership piece. They need to be taught how to make those kinds of decisions on a regular basis and to be looking for them. And I think they get caught up in, I'm just a teacher, I can't, you know, I can't do this kid isn't capable, rather than looking for that kid's superpower, identifying, well, where are they capable, so we can take it from there, you know. And that's the sad part, because if you have an entire building of teachers that don't know this because the leader doesn't know it, then all those kids are doomed to fail. And that's a sad reality.
Yeah, true. We'll leave it at that, Miguel. We'll leave it at that. Thank you so much. It's very good. Very good to have you on. Viewers, thank you for joining us. This is EduTalk. We're so happy to have Dr. Barker back with us. If it's even for a few months, we'll take it. You know, Dr. Barker, we're going to talk about your assignment with the book and publishing that book, the book of research. Oh my God. I will make sure that I get my hands on one of those copies and read through it, because I'm sure it's good. So we'll talk a little bit more. Judy, thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, this has been EduTalk, everybody. We will see you next week. Please visit our website at edusolutionsintl.org or write to us at admin@educationsolutionsinternational.org. That's admin@educationsolutionsinternational.org. We will see you next week. We hope you learned something from what we're doing here, and we'll talk to you again in one of maybe writing to us or visiting our website and check out some of our services. Thank you so much. See you next week with another version of EduTalk.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.